Hello, hello. This is Kim Addis. I am the president and founder of Frame of Mind Coaching, and you have just joined the Frame of Mind Coaching podcast, where we invite leaders from all over the world to come onto the podcast and get coached live and in person. Today, I'm meeting someone new. It's a first-time visit with my guest. Her name is Nancy Myers. Nancy, welcome.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
So Nancy and I were talking right before the show, and she shared with me that she just took on a new role with a new company, and it's an energy drink called RapStar, R-A-P,
Yeah.
rap artists. So that's super cool. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
It's a new startup here in Atlanta, and basically they've been spending, I guess the last 3 years actually getting ready to launch it. Basically doing a lot of market research, talking with a lot of different hip hop rap artists to see who's going to collaborate and partner with them. They've done well that way. I can't really say, but they've done well. So basically, they have the marketing side of everything down. It was more around the operational, um, basically knowing exactly what investors, who to partner with. And that's something that I've actually learned a lot of in the last 3 years. So I will be the COO, taking care of the operations, optimizing the company, and basically building the performance model and complete business plan for them.
Amazing. Congratulations. I'm
Yeah,
excited to hear that how that goes down. And right now you're in Atlanta. You mentioned to me before. You came from somewhere else. So tell us a little bit about your journey and your recent experience.
yes. So I'll start with my background is programming and designing large mechanical control systems, energy management, carbon management, district energy. I'm a geek, actually.
Okay.
And I just stumbled upon a little island called St. Vincent the Grenadines that
I
had
know
got.
it well.
Yes, well, it's a beautiful, beautiful place. The people are amazing. I got down there to basically form a new farming corporation to basically get the farmers to be able to export their produce globally. And we had focused on one specific product and partnered with a vitamin company. And then the volcano erupted.
Oh no.
So I moved down there in October, gave up my career to jump at this after doing 3 years of a lot of work in building. And we were just about to launch the very first online training program in the Caribbean for global agricultural practice. And the volcano erupted that day.
Wow. So you were evacuated and that was that.
I was evacuated in April. Canada was still locked down. I, unfortunately, because of allergies, cannot get the vaccination. So getting
Oh
into Canada
wow.
was very difficult. And to be truthful, I just wasn't ready to be locked down.
Right.
After, it was that was quite a little ordeal to go through. So I've been bouncing around the US, basically closing down croissants, which was an emotional journey in itself after
Yeah.
many years of building it. And a friend of mine in Atlanta said, you know what, come here. I'm traveling all the time. Just regroup, see what happens. And I just met this gentleman by chance out to dinner one night and
Nice.
started talking, where we came from. He goes, you're not from here. And I'm like, no, Canadian. And next thing you know, he's like, we've been waiting for you.
Wow.
Yeah. I was like, oh, okay.
So you just bumped into someone, and that someone happened to be related to the energy drink
He was a,
wrap.
yeah, he
What
was
is
the,
it called? RapStar Energy Drink.
he was the CEO of it.
Wow, amazing.
Yeah.
Talk about serendipity. Incredible.
It's
Okay,
kind
so,
of playing up in St. Vincent. So everything seems to happen that way for me.
yeah, there you go. So tell us right now, what is your greatest challenge? What do you want to talk about today on today's episode?
Um, you know, I guess for me, I've always kind of been behind the scenes.
Mhm.
And even when I formed the company croissants, I had never seen CEO before. I just started building it, researching it, studying every component of it. I guess actually learning more than what most CEOs actually learn.
Right.
But I'm an analytical person, so I just kept digging and digging and basically took all of my free time. Um, and I'm really big on risk analysis. The only big risk I couldn't handle was the volcano, and there's not much you can do about that.
Are you big on risk analysis or risk prevention?
All of the above. All of the above. I worked in healthcare for 10 years, taking care of 22 healthcare facilities, mechanical systems. So when you have doctors that, the air shuts off, the cooling shuts off, things people don't think about behind the world of healthcare, that was the most challenging job I've ever had.
Would you
And
call yourself risk averse?
yes,
Okay. All right.
yeah,
So risk averse, but there's a volcano, so you can't manage that. Nothing you can do. All right. So
nothing.
now you're taking on a new role. You're used to being behind the scenes. So where are you now? What's the challenge?
Well, it's called RapStar Energy Drink with a lot of celebrities.
Yeah.
Um, Basically, it's going to be a lot of in front of the scenes.
Uh-huh.
Um, I'm
So
actually
what
the one.
what's your fear?
Uh, my fear would be basically coming off too much as a geek, actually.
And what would be wrong with that?
Um, Intimidation. I find that a lot of people are intimidated by my intelligence. I tend to get on a roll sometimes, and some people are like, "Wow, she's really wow," and some people are intimidated by that. And so, some of these different artists and that I'm going to be working with, you know, won't have that experience with my
So
world.
are you saying that your intelligence can turn some people off? Okay. And have you had the experience in the past where your intelligence has turned some people off?
Yes,
Can
actually,
you
quite a bit.
describe one of those times, one or two of those times?
um, as far as I know, especially when I started back in the day, I was the only female in my industry.
Yeah.
So I have gone into numerous meetings. I remember one meeting in particular was a very high profile project, system integration, smart building, smartest building that had ever been built, actually. And when I walked in, I didn't know exactly where I was going. I was just hired for sales, so I'm dressed up, which I normally do. And when I walked in, they said to me, "Sorry, women don't usually attend this meeting."
How
And
many years ago was this?
four.
Seriously?
Oh, I get it all the time.
And where were you in the world?
Vancouver.
In Vancouver, in Canada. They said women don't attend this meeting?
Yeah.
Wow.
And
Okay. And then
I,
what did you do?
I just looked at them. I said, "Well, I guess today's your lucky day." Um,
Good answer.
I'm used to it. So I said, "You know what? I'm just here to observe. I'm here with this company. They've just asked me to look in on the project to see how it's going." And as I sat there and listened to it, I was like, "This is the most disorganized construction project I've ever been on in my whole career. Wow, this is really bad, and I don't think I want to be part of it." And so at the end of it, I said, "Well, do you mind if I ask a couple questions?" And so I started asking, and sometimes I do it on purpose. I really do. When you kind of, you set yourself up. So I asked a lot of technical questions, and they all kind of went, and I just
You
went
mean their jaw was on the floor?
on the floor, on the
Okay.
floor. And I said, "I'm sorry. I should have probably, you didn't really ask me who I was and what I do." So when I give them my background, they just went, "Oh." But one gentleman went, "I've heard of you."
Mhm.
And I went, "Oh, okay. Well, so if you could get me the answers to these questions, that would be great." And then afterwards, the same gentleman that came up to me and said, "Women don't," he was the project manager for this construction company. He said to me, he goes, I need your help.
Mhm.
He
So
goes,
so I'm not seeing a problem. You walk in, people underestimate you, you blow them away, and then they turn their heads, and then they take like it's a second look, a double look, double take. That's the word I'm looking for, right?
some do,
Okay, okay,
some will really start challenging.
okay,
Like they'll really start, questioning my experience or my intelligence. Like they'll just try their damnedest to make me look bad.
okay. So,
Usually when that happens, I just sit back and
yeah. So
look.
I mean, it sounds like you're handling yourself incredibly well. It sounds like you handle yourself with a little bit of humor, a little bit of, grace, lots of grace, and quite
Yeah.
a bit of intelligence. And you're able to not get rattled when there's a statement so insidious as women don't usually attend these meetings, which I'm shocked to hear in this day and age in Canada. So I'm just blown away by that. Right? So you're handling yourself well. What do you anticipate will be a challenge in this new role? Like you're going to be dealing with all kinds of people. Where do you feel in advance the rub might be?
Um, is when I tend to, some people will say, if they're not, some people will say, "Are you trying to make me look bad?" So, and I just kind of go off. Like I said, I just kind of get on a roll when I start talking, and
Okay.
so I'm an instructor as well. So because of that, sometimes I come off as an instructor, a
Okay,
teacher.
so it sounds like what's happening, and if I'm trying to read between the lines a little bit, is that when somebody says, "Are you trying to make me look bad?" You're challenging them in a way, and you're perhaps unconsciously kind of pinning them up against a wall where they have no place to go. Is that
Well,
accurate?
yeah, I think they feel like that,
They
and
feel like that.
yeah,
Yeah, you're not doing it on purpose, and perhaps part of it is for you to kind of create a level of credibility for yourself when people don't know you.
that's exactly what it is.
Okay, so I
I've
understand.
identified that is exactly what it is. It's a matter of proving myself,
Okay,
'cause
so
that's
let me
primarily.
share with you some tips that might help you. Okay, and really, it sounds like what would benefit you would be to acquire a few skills related to coaching because right, so you don't want to be in a position of instructor or educator, because what happens on the other side is a person ends up getting defensive, and that doesn't necessarily work in your favor. So sure, you come off as intelligent, but you don't come off as necessarily a team player, right? You're
Yeah,
not on their team, and so the question becomes, how do you become on their team? And so the first thing that I would recommend is that when you're, I mean, I love the fact that you're asking questions, and I call that getting the story, right? I just ask you a bunch of questions and I'm getting the story from you. What exactly is going on? What's taking place? Give me an example. Give me a little history. When did it happen in the past? You get the sense I'm doing it right now with you, right? The
yes,
second piece of it is I'm trying to dig underneath that story. And what I mean by that is I'm trying to understand what is the implication of this event or this situation for you. And I understood the implication, right? The implication is like you're trying to make an impact and you come in and people don't understand who you are and what you're about. And when you try to demonstrate that, they're taken aback or um, you, they're not warming up to you necessarily the way you want them to, right? And
yeah,
then the next part, what I just did is I did something called encapsulating,
okay,
okay, which is I just described the problem. And when you say, yes, that's exactly it, I know that I finally understood what you're trying to share with me. And I'm in a position of compassion. I understand where you're coming from. I understand what you're doing. And the minute that you feel that I understand you, you also feel that I'm on your team. Does that make sense?
absolutely.
And
Now,
that's the piece that I think you're missing.
Yes. And well, I've developed it for my industry.
Yeah.
Like I would normally be dealing with like building operators, all these different ones. And I've always, from day one, when I started in training, I started there. So
Yeah.
I knew what it was like for them. I was able to put myself in their shoes. And for my whole career, my father taught me that right from the get-go with my first job interview, where I walked in and went, "We don't hire women." And he went, "Okay, you need to understand their fears." So my father taught me this so many years ago. And so I always would sit down and try to identify with what are their fears. But I came from that industry, so it was easier for me to identify it.
Yeah.
This whole new industry
Yeah.
that I'm like doing as much research as I can on rap stars, and like I know
Yeah.
their music and all that, but it's more around who are they as a person, because the perception that they put out with their music isn't necessarily them.
Right. And really what you're trying to do is understand the person. And
Yeah,
just because they're in an industry doesn't mean that all their personalities are identical, right?
exactly.
And so really what you're trying to do is understand the individual, where they're coming from, how they see the world. And when they feel that they have a struggle, you want to try to really get at that root of at the root of the struggle. And we're asking questions, we're understanding, but the critical component in having an effective conversation is not demonstrating that I'm intelligent. It's demonstrating that I understand you,
Yeah,
that I'm able to verbalize the emotional state you're in and the experience you're having. And when you feel that I'm able to verbalize that, now you're going, okay, she gets me. Now I'm ready to hear what she has to say. Until I do that, I'm just somebody that doesn't matter, right? I'm just somebody who, is asking questions or trying to look smart or whatever, right? But it's that critical piece that makes the difference in your ability to connect with those people. And that's what I'm really hearing from you, is that I really want to connect. I want to make an impact. I want to make a difference. I want to bring my expertise to the table. But in order for me to do that, I need to connect, because I need to establish trust.
yeah,
And in order to establish trust, I must demonstrate that I understand the complexity of their point of view.
yes,
And that has nothing to do with demonstrating how smart I am. It has to do with really taking the time to, I call it, encapsulate what it is that they are experiencing.
yeah,
Once you're there, then you can make any recommendations you want. If you try to make recommendations ahead of time before encapsulation period, forget it,
yeah.
right? And that's kind of like the thing that brings everything together.
That makes, yeah, it is. It's as I've gone out here in Atlanta and gone to different, meetings and met this person and that person, I'm just like, wow, okay. I'm still in awe when I look at the diamond necklace around their neck, and I'm like, do you have that insured? Like, oh my God, and I still, no matter where I've lived and I've traveled the world, I come from a little fishing village in Nova Scotia,
Right. Yeah,
right?
you're in a different land. You look different, you sound different, you see the world differently, and your job is simply to demonstrate that you have some kind of understanding of what they are trying to share with you. And so the language could be, so what you're saying is fill in the blank, right? And when
Yeah,
they say yes, that's exactly what I'm saying, now you can move on. Now the relationship has been established. Until then, don't try to move forward.
yeah. So what
So,
happens if
yeah,
they don't share?
then you haven't asked enough questions,
Okay,
right?
just keep at it until,
Be interested in them, get their story. And a lot of times people give you a very, very small component of their story. Your job is to ask for more detail, for
yeah,
more. So people will say, for example, I'll give you an example, okay, right here. So you went to the Caribbean, there was a volcano, you were evacuated, you didn't want to go to Canada and it was hard for you to go back home anyways because of COVID. So you decided to travel around. You're living in somebody's home, right?
Mhm.
So I might say, and we won't get into this right now, but you didn't really talk about this person or this home. You just said he travels a lot. So he said, why don't you stay here? I'd be curious about that story and say, who is this man? Are you in a relationship with him? How did you meet him? What is the arrangement here? I'm just plain old curious,
Yeah.
right? Now, it's not the topic of this conversation,
Mhm.
but you didn't mention it. You offered up a very small part of this relationship, but you left a lot out in the story. And
Yeah.
so I'd be curious to go to those places that you're leaving out. The
Okay.
same
Okay.
applies to you.
Yeah.
But what I wanted to share with you is we train leaders how to coach. And I will tell you with absolute certainty is that leaders who learn how to coach experience a much, much higher level of satisfaction with the performance of their team. It's a direct relationship. And so we teach leaders how to coach so that their results are more significant. They're reaching their goals, they're achieving more, their performance levels are higher. And so one of the things I do is I create information and content about how to coach people. So I gave you, there's a 5-step process that I use. I think I gave you four of the 5 steps, or maybe just 3. But if you're interested, um, there's a paper that I wrote all about those 5 steps. And for those of you who are listening, if you're interested, you can look for those 5 steps too. And I'll give you the URL. If you just go to our website, frameofmindcoaching.com/5 coaching steps, you'll find them. So I
Okay.
encourage you to look those up. You'll read them and you'll say, okay, I understand exactly which point she was trying to discuss. And the word for you is encapsulation. It's so important. And it's the thing that so many people miss in their conversations.
That is, I always kind of did. I've learned different skills over the years, not really knowing exactly what they were. And as I said, I've learned to read the room and
Yep.
that, but this is a different room.
This
So
is a different room. And sometimes we learn things and we forget. And sometimes we learn things, but the moment we're conscious of what it is that we're supposed to do, that's a different game, right? Once we're going, oh, this is the part that I have naturally tried to do, but now that I'm conscious of it, I need to make sure it's part of the conversation. So it becomes a little more effective for you.
that is good.
Nancy, thank you so much for being on the podcast, for sharing your story. We're really excited to hear more about your RapStar Energy Drink. It's
I
funny how you went from the energy industry to the energy drink industry. That's kind of funny.
there you
But
thought about that. Yeah.
we're gonna follow your story and see what happens when that drink comes to the public. But thank you
Uh,
so much.
Thank you. This was good. I appreciate it.
For those of you who are listening, I hope you took something away from this conversation. The concept of encapsulation is super important when you're having conversations with people where you're really trying to demonstrate that you understand them and you're trying to establish trust. Without encapsulation, there's a piece missing, there's a connectivity that's absent from the conversation. So I encourage you to take a moment and try to encapsulate what somebody else is saying, where they're coming from, and really understand the emotional state that they have when they're describing their problem, their struggle, their challenge. For those of you who are listening, if you have a challenge that you want to share on the podcast, please reach out to me. My email address is kim@frameofmindcoaching.com. If you have a challenge that you want to talk about, but maybe not so much on the podcast, please reach out to me as well. My email address is kim@frameofmindcoaching.com. And if you're interested in downloading that paper on the 5 coaching steps, go to frameofmindcoaching.com/5 coaching steps. Until we see you next time, thank you. Have a great day.